So this is the mail on Sunday the 16th of August 2020. The mail on Sunday that led with the attack by Priti Patel on the migrants. Only in the last weeks. And what is the same Priti Patel saying today? That she is the representative, the voice of the migrants, especially in the fight against racist France. And they are fleeing French racist torture and persecution, degrading and inhuman conditions. So who to believe? When to believe? Priti Patel is a racist. Priti Patel is an agent of the same Home Office that had the policy to implement hostile environment for the immigrants, and especially including in the context of the Windrush generation of people coming from the Caribbean in the late 1940s, early 50s. The Windrush generation hit the headlines in Fleet Street when a report was published about Theresa May giving the orders, directives for the operation by the British Home Office, the Interior Ministry, of an intolerant, racist atmosphere, making life as impossible, as hard, as difficult as possible for the immigrants, and especially for the migrants from the Caribbean. And the Home Office has been accused of running a number of concentration camp-like detention centers for years, where immigrants, migrants, and asylum seekers are kept in absolutely, unbelievably human rights violating situations. The Home Office is responsible for the most comprehensive, most aggravated, persistent racist policies over the decades. And the Home Office creates, fuels new slogans against migrants. And the target of the slogans, the attacks that accompany the slogans, and the attacks that are part of the agenda that the slogans actually declare, the Home Office has been violating all the charters, all the international treaty obligations and all the founding aims protecting migrants and people escaping poverty and hunger and famine and destitution and war zones created by successive regimes in the UK as well as in other Western countries, including France. So the Home Office, even when it was occupied, the Home Secretary was a Labour Home Secretary, has been as racist as it has been when the Home Secretary has been conservative. And Priti Patel is a particularly extreme right-wing opportunist conservative, as we have chronicled in the last 10 days. Priti Patel is the daughter of migrants who fled East Africa, where in the late 60s and early 70s there was an open orchestrated campaign by the states in East Africa, Uganda, Kenya, and other states that forced people of Asian origin living in those countries and running shops and businesses to flee. And if they didn't flee, then they would have been murdered and massacred and raped and violated, and all the other bad things would have happened to them. So Priti Patel, being a daughter of such migrants from East Africa, being now the Home Secretary in Britain, has been at the forefront of the attack on the migrants trying to flee their original countries and trying to reach countries like Britain and risking their lives crossing the channel. She created a series of headlines coming across as if the migrants were a threat, like an invasion army from another state equipped with military and other forces to attack Britain, occupy Britain, take over Britain, in a way that William the Conqueror had been suspected to be taking over Kent. And the Kent County Council was being used as a launching pad for the assault on the perceived invading army of 20 or 30 desperate asylum seekers trying to cross the channel in dinghies. So the same Priti Patel, in this Sunday, Mail on Sunday, not only is she not saying the same things she has said for 10 days, but she has turned, at least according to this slogan, as the front of the campaign against racist French who are torturing and who are degrading the asylum seekers. What kind of make-believe world is this? This is only possible for Fleet Street and the Mail on Sunday to publish without any apology for the hateful, lying headlines that they have been running for the last 10 days. And without questioning Priti Patel for this particular about turn, we say that the reason why she has been and the colluding media in Fleet Street have been staging this new kind of stance is because of the force of opposition that they have been shown to their previous racist hatred and incitement. We have played our part in drawing attention extensively to the racist hatred campaign, but we have been among many maybe not the others that have expressed the anger and opposition, they have not done that as elaborately as we have done, but they have been expressing the same similar disgust that we have been chronicling and factually reporting about the role of the Kent County Council, the role of Priti Patel, the role of the leader of the Kent County Council, Go, and the role of Boris Johnson, and the role of the BBC breakfast program, the BBC, other news channel items and slots, and the Sky News breakfast counterpart to the BBC breakfast show, which is fronted by Kay Barley. So all these people have been fomenting hatred against the migrants trying to cross the channel into England. And here is the about time this Sunday. And this is only due to the campaign that we have been part of in opposing this hateful assault on the rights of the most vulnerable people fleeing countries of origin where war, famine, starvation, and even genocide have been taking place. And we can say that if there is a concerted campaign against wrongdoing, then it is possible. It's possible to reverse it, to stop it. That's the only way that rights can be defended, by concerted, consistent, and clearly fact-based, evidence-based, constitutional method of opposing. The constitutional method has been available to all campaigners because of the, as I said, founding charter and the declarations of the United Nations on the 10th of December 1948, and as followed by other conventions, agreements, charters, treaties, to almost all of which the UK has been a signatory. So the UK has been a signatory for 72 years to series of charters and declarations upholding the humanity and the human rights of people like the migrants that have been the target of vilification, hatred, and threat of military action, naval assault, Air Force assault by Priti Patel. And here she is. Suddenly, all of that she thinks is forgotten. And she has become a champion of the migrants and against racism of the French. There is no doubt that the French policies have been as racist, as oppressive. But the point is that in the last few weeks, and since actually January 2020, when the new Home Office occupant began the campaign against the migrants, Priti Patel, by using the Kent County Council, which is a Tory controlled council, as the proxy in the front. This is Priti Patel staging an about turn only because of the campaign. And we shall be coming back to this story later in the following editions. And we say here a short piece about Jonathan Sumter. Jonathan Sumter retired not long before the second challenge to Boris Johnson's anti-parliamentary, anti-democratic action. The proroguing of Parliament took place. And Jonathan Sumter is given the status as a former Supreme Court judge. Oh, that is the Haque. So he's saying that everything coming out of number 10 Downing Street, occupied by Boris Johnson, stinks, is corrupt, is unbelievable, is incredible, is a disgrace. So Jonathan Sumter is saying this, but he is an exception. It's not the Labour Party's opposition. It's not the opposition in Parliament, Keir Starmer, who is saying it. And although Jonathan Sumter makes the factual points, the silence of Keir Starmer over Boris Johnson's stinking, corrupt, unbelievable, unreliable, racist behavior, the silence is contributing to the sense of confidence that Boris Johnson is feeling, because there is no threat of opposition demanding scrutiny, although numerically they will never overthrow the government in a vote. But there would be serious public attention drawn to the excesses and to the incompetence, to the negligence, the criminality, and the corruption and the racism, and the hostile environment perpetuated by the regime fronted by Boris Johnson and taken part in by the likes of Priti Patel. In the last 72 hours, we've also noticed that Kent County Council, whom we interrogated exclusively and shared on the previous editions, have gone silent. That is a tactical silence. We don't believe that Kent County Council has given up its holy war against the most vulnerable people trying to get refuge in Britain. And it's in the same kind of arrangement that Priti Patel is now pretending to be against racism and aggravating that pretense. She's saying that she's against French racism. The Kent County Council racists and violators of the treaty obligations and charters are in cahoots and are colluding with Priti Patel and Boris Johnson and Dominic Cummings and whoever else is in control of the racist agenda by scapegoating, falsely accusing the migrants and the victims of wars and famines and genocide who are trying to escape their places of origin and their homes and looking for shelter in the West. And as I said many times in my broadcast on Channel 4 News Slot, which I had written and presented in January 1992, I had told the United Nations and I told the then Prime Minister John Major to concentrate efforts to ending poverty, hunger, malnutrition, lack of democracy, and lack of exploitation in the countries in Africa and Asia, from where most people need to escape and head for refuges and alternative homes in the West. I said 28 years ago that if they did that 28 years ago, or over the 28 years, we would not be having most of the wars now, and we would not be having the catastrophic destruction of lives of hundreds of millions of people who are victims of the warfare that should not have been waged and created and spawned. The West does trade in war making, war creation. It's the new kind of imperialism. They do this war trade, sell, market and sell, and promote weapons of mass destruction. And as they do that, they are committing themselves to partnership for genocide, partnership for massacre of the innocent. And all of these are in direct violation of the founding aims and charters of the United Nations. And these are in violation of all good international laws and agreements, and nobody has been actually prosecuted for creating hunger and poverty and famine. This is a violation of the human rights of these people. And we shall be continuing the legal move to prosecute and hold to account legally the Home Office and the Kent County Council as a start. We have started it, and we shall continue up to the point where they will stop doing this again. Not only the British, but their counterparts in France and other places, but the violations of the human rights of the victims of famine, hunger, and wars created by the war creators and war traders of the West. Those have to stop. And as the United Nations has not prosecuted, the United Nations hasn't started any prosecution, we shall do our best to compel the prosecution and whatever is necessary within the legal framework, constitutional law framework, internationally and within the UK. And from the UK, we shall do our best to bring to book violators of the charters and violators of the 1951 Refugee Convention. And we shall be continuing this in the next recording. This is coming to 16:37 GMT in London on Sunday, the 16th of August, 2020.